The collectibles market was estimated to be worth nearly $400 billion by the end of 2021, and that makes these rare items a potentially attractive investment vehicle for those who have a trained eye or the time needed to identify, buy, and preserve these goods.
What are you talking about?
In this video, we'll be discussing the basics of collectibles, including which kinds of items are considered as such, how investors can get exposure to this market, and what the key variables to consider are to estimate their value. Thank you so much for checking out our channel. You know what to do to make sure you always know when we release a new video. Oh wait, maybe you don't. Smash that like button. It doesn't cost you anything and massively helps out the channel. Anyway guys, I'll stop persuading you to subscribe and get into what this video is all about, and that is investing in collectibles. So what are they? Collectible items are unique, rare, or hard to find goods that can be or have been stored and preserved for years and that have gained sentimental value within a certain audience. For an item to be valuable, there has to be a market for it, and in the case of a collectible, that market is typically comprised of fans and followers of a certain trend, event, or type of good. In most cases, the value of a collectible item far exceeds its listing price back when it was available to the general public. Now, meanwhile, the value of the item is influenced by multiple variables, such as its condition, how demanded the item is, and how rare it is. Now let's talk about how do collectible investments work. Investing in collectibles starts by developing a keen eye to identify the potential of certain pieces to become highly sought after in the future due to their growing fan base or historical significance.
I'm not sure you appreciate the historical significance.
Even though some services and advisors may do the heavy lifting for investors, it is possible to also have some sort of knowledge about the specific niche that the collector will be speculating and specializing in to increase the odds of making profitable transactions. The next step is to buy the item. Collectibles can be bought at multiple places, including auctions, garage sales, trade fairs, pawn shops, directly from the manufacturer when the goods released, or from private collectors. Now, after the item is bought, it must be appropriately stored to, avoid damages. The conditions of a collectible item affect its value significantly, and therefore they must be protected from wear and tear, the impact of climate conditions, and other similar factors. The most profitable collectible items will gain value over time, and even more so when the manufacturer is no longer making the product and the number of available pieces is limited. Once the price of the item gets to the point that it can be sold at a handsome profit, the investor can opt to either liquidate the investment and move on to the next opportunity, or keep it for longer if he or she expects that the value will continue to rise in the future. The same places at which the item was bought can be used to sell it. Collectibles fall under the category of alternative investments. The risks involved in collecting items include physical deterioration, damage, or theft, the possibility that the item does not become valuable for any audience, and the manufacturer's reluctance to discontinue the item, as all those instances would diminish the item's rarity. It is also important to note that the risk of buying counterfeits is high if the item does not come with a certificate of authenticity.
Certificate of authenticity.
The return on investment produced by collectibles can vary widely depending on market conditions and the item being bought. For example, some estimates point to stamps as returning around 5 to 10% annually in the long term, while other goods may generate either less or more depending on how rare they are and whether there is a high demand for it. You might be thinking, what are the best platforms to invest in collectibles? So let's talk about it. First, there's Collectible. Collectible is an online platform through which users can participate in the initial public offerings of collectible items that have been secured. The company has operations in both the US and the United Kingdom, and it is a registered broker-dealer and a member of the FINRA and SIPC. To date, Collectible has settled over 50 million in transactions and currently serves more than 50,000 users. Fees vary for every transaction, and shares can be sold in a secondary market in case the investor wants to cash out. If the company receives a bid for any of the items in its portfolio, it will ask the owners to vote, and if the majority approves, the item would be sold at the bid price and the proceeds will be distributed accordingly. Otis is an app that allows users to acquire a fractional interest on a collectible item, either physical or digital. The company was recently acquired by the popular investing app Public.com, and this has pushed Otis into the spotlight as Public's users can now incorporate another asset class into their portfolio through this platform. Apart from the fractionalized ownership alternative, Otis also acts as an auction house that regularly mints non-fungible tokens, NFTs, on the Ethereum blockchain. These NFTs give the buyer ownership over the underlying physical asset. Registering and investing with Otis is quite easy and can be done from a smartphone. Moreover, the company has made available a secondary market in case investors want to cash out at any given point. Rally selects the top investments in the marketplace and offers them to investors so they can partially own the pieces to further diversify their portfolio. The company has designed a user-friendly platform through which transactions can be quickly and easily completed and offer the alternative to buying and selling shares in a secondary market in case investors either want to liquidate their holdings or buy a certain piece after the initial offering has concluded. The minimum amount required to buy and sell shares of the many assets offered by the platform is very low and starts at around $5 per share. Rally charges no commissions and registering with the app is actually free. Dibs is a Los Angeles-based company that currently serves over 50,000 users in the United States who can participate in the initial offerings conducted by the firm or buy a fraction of a collectible through the company's user-friendly platform in a matter of minutes. The platform charges a relatively low 2.9% fee for making transactions within the platform and takes care of all the hassles of owning collectibles, including storing, insuring, and shipping items. There are many types of collectibles, and depending on what you like and which niche you know more about, you can pick one or more items in this list if you plan to start creating a diversified portfolio of collectible goods. First, we'll talk about stamps as our first popular type of collectible. Stamps are produced by post offices and providers of shipping services, and they can be collected as the themes and designs of these items change periodically, making them a form of art in itself. Next, there are rare coins. Coins have been issued by governments throughout history, and they have been used either as a means of payment or have been stored as collectible items when the number of manufactured specimens has been relatively low. Next are toys. Toys can be much more than something children can play with in the collectibles market. For the right collector, a toy can be worth much more than the price it was paid for due to either the sentimental value of the piece or how rare it is. Next is fine art. Fine art is a popular type of collectible, especially for those who have a trained eye to identify pieces and a strong potential to appreciate in value over time or undervalued items. Next is fine wine. Wine can become a collectible item if the bottle's age is high and the bottler's reputation is particularly good. Moreover, wine's value of the bottle increases if a limited edition or it's been stored in a certain way. Next are sneakers. Sneakers have become a staple type of shoe that almost everybody wears at least once during the week due to the comfort they provide and the way they manage to fit with many different types of clothing. Then there's trading cards such as baseball cards, hockey cards, football cards, you name it. Perhaps not as popular as they were once, trading cards remain a collectible item for sports fans and sentimental folks who love to remember key characters in the history of a specific discipline. Then there's vintage clothing. Vintage clothing refers to apparel from a different era that has been stored appropriately to remain in perfect condition. Some examples include original cowboy hats, royalty garments, mid-century dresses from the 1900s, and other pieces that can take people back in time. There's antique furniture. Designer furniture and pieces from decades or centuries ago can be considered as collectible items as they can be issued by decorators, commercial venues, and to encompass the design of a particular space. There's also classic automobiles. Even though most people love modern vehicles due to their many technological features and how comfortable they are, there is a huge market for collectible automobiles. To be considered as such, the vehicle should be older than 30 years with limited editions and certain brands and models standing at the top of the charts due to their large community of fans. Another collectible is rare jewelry. Jewelry can be valuable due to the expensiveness of the materials used to craft it and the creator's reputation. However, pieces with historical significance or that have been worn by certain individuals at a certain time can also be considered valuable for collectors. Watches are timeless pieces that continue to be an essential part of people's wardrobes, as they can be the perfect complement to both the casual and elegant attire. Vintage watches are pieces older than 30 years and that have been crafted by top designers in the industry. Then there's movie collectibles. Movies have been for years a great source of collectible items for years, as certain films and sagas continue to attract the public's interest, including emblematic stories such as Star Wars, superheroes like Batman and Superman, and horror movies like Chucky. You can't forget about comic books. Comic books became popular in the United States in the 1930s and were progressively embraced globally as a form of art and a way to convey complicated ideas through fictional characters. Sports memorabilia. Sports memorabilia refers to items that have been used during certain key events and by top performers of each discipline. The kind of good that can be considered as such varies widely depending on the sport. Now let's talk about how collectibles are valued. Even though the specific factors that shape the value of collectibles may vary from one type to the other, certain characteristics will always play a role in determining their price. As with everything else, supply and demand are the first variables that will determine how valuable a collectible is. Items with a huge following or that are considered top tier in their respective niches will always be priced higher than those that are rarely collected. Meanwhile, the number of similar or exact replicas of the item that are currently available in the market will also influence its price. One-of-a-kind goods tend to be priced higher than those that were mass-produced. Then there's the rarity. Rare items are considered either unique, hard to find, or just odd. One example of this is Are coins. These items are valuable because they are uncommon. That said, rarity can also be attributed to items that have been signed by someone who did not usually sign things, or if the item was considered lost. The rarer the item, the higher its value should be, as long as there is a big enough audience of people who would like to get their hands on it. Next is authenticity. All items' authenticity will play a key role in determining its price. Authenticity is typically verified by an expert, and a certificate is issued once they have made a qualified judgment that the object is what the owner claims it is. Some sports teams and brands tend to sell memorabilia with their respective certificates of authenticity, or producers may incorporate logos and marks that can assure the buyer that he is purchasing an original. Next, we have the condition. In the collectibles market, condition is everything. Since most of the items being traded are relatively old, how preserved they are will influence the price of the object tremendously. In the case of toys, products that are still in the box, and even more so if the box is in good condition, will be worth more than those that have been unboxed. When it comes to items such as cards and documents, the way they have been preserved affects how they're going to age significantly. As a rule of thumb, the more the product or item looks as if time has not passed, the more valuable it will be to the collector. And there's the provenance. Provenance refers to where the product was manufactured, or in some cases by who. This is particularly important for fine wine, jewelry, and coins. In the case of wine, certain vineyards are considered household brands in the luxury segment. In those cases, provenance plays a key role in determining the price of the goods. Now let's talk about some advantages of investing in collectibles. First, they can be used to further diversify the alternative asset portion of the investment portfolio. Next, the upside potential can be extremely high. If market trends change favorably, collectors can remain anonymous. Since most collectibles are physical assets, they can be easily transported to remote places for selling. And many people find collectible investing both a lucrative and fun activity, as they will probably buy items related to trends they are passionate about. You know what? Let's talk about the downsides of investing in collectibles. First, some collectibles can be very illiquid if market conditions deteriorate or interest for that type of item fades. Then there's collectibles that do not generate any kind of income, such as dividends or royalties. The risk of theft, damage, or destruction is high, and insurance policies can be expensive. Buying collectibles that come without a certificate of authenticity from a well-reputed source can lead to losses if the item turns out to be a counterfeit. Valuing a collectible can be difficult and may require the disbursement of professional fees paid to appraisers. You guys have asked, and we have found some of the most frequently asked questions regarding collectible investments, and here are our answers. Are collectibles a good investment? Overall, the return realized by an investor who buys and holds collectibles can vary widely depending on what he or she bought, how much time has passed since the item stopped being available to the masses, and the overall conditions of the market or niche. If the economy is not experiencing a recession and the item has a large enough fan base, chances are that the value of the collectible will increase as time passes and its rarity increases. Moreover, there are periods during which the demand for certain items increases due to fads and trends. In those scenarios, the value of the item may increase at a faster rate than usual, but typically for a short period, and investors must keep an eye on the market to identify potential once-in-a-lifetime opportunities to sell their collectibles at a great price. Are collectibles a safe investment? As with any other investment, there are risks involved in buying collectibles, including the possibility that the item could be damaged, lost, or destroyed. Also, if the item has not been authenticated, the risk of fraud increases for prospective buyers. Other risks include the diminishing fan base or audience of prospective customers and illiquidity, which means that it might be hard to find buyers for the item. This could lead to markdowns and lower returns of investment. Next question is, how are collectibles taxed? Collectibles are taxed as any other investment. If the investor flips his or her holdings in less than a year, the profits resulting from the operation will be taxed at ordinary income. Meanwhile, if the item is sold at a later date, the profits will be taxed at the capital gains rate. The applicable long-term capital gains tax in the U.S. is currently capped at 28%. Certain expenditures related to collectible investments, such as insurance and storing costs, may be tax deductible. Interestingly, if a collectible item is displayed or used, capital losses cannot be claimed in case it is sold at a price lower than the cost basis. The next question is, how much are my collectibles worth? The value of a collectible item can vary widely depending on some of the factors discussed earlier in this video: the supply, the demand, the age, conditions, rarity, and provenance. A good way to determine how much a collectible is worth is to take it to an appraiser, an auction house, or a pawn shop. There are also online appraiser services, and some of them charge relatively low fees. Are collectibles investments good for beginners? Investing in collectibles can be quite rewarding if you have a trained eye for certain types of items and can easily identify potential winners in certain niches of the market. For those who have no prior experience in this activity, it might be easier to rely on some of the platforms mentioned in this article to buy and hold collectible items whose potential has been identified by professionals in the industry. Are collectibles a liquid investment? The best answer is, it depends. The liquidity of collectible items will largely depend on the size of the audience that has an interest in that particular type of good. For example, items related to the most popular films such as Star Wars or comic books from Marvel will typically enjoy a sufficient strong demand in most market conditions to ensure that buyers will easily be found for most items. That said, since supply and demand may vary drastically for specific items based on market trends, the price at which the item can be sold at different points in time can fluctuate widely. Overall, collectibles are highly illiquid if compared with other alternative asset classes, such as cryptocurrencies, real estate, hedge funds, and private equity. That was a lot about collectibles, so let's kind of talk about some final things that I'm just thinking about. Collectible items can be a great addition to a portfolio to further diversify the portion allocated to alternative assets. That said, it might take a trained eye or some guidance from a professional to identify the best items to invest in to make sure that the money poured into this asset class will deliver decent returns over time. I hope you had a chance to check out our other alternative investment videos. If you haven't, make sure you head over to our channel's main page and check that out. If you found value in this video, destroy that like button, and I'll see you in the next video.